And hello, folks. For those of you that may have seen me around, I'm Don Emilio Zeno. And tonight we have a very special video podcast that I never do. And that's because it has to do with political matters. For those of you that know me personally, I don't talk religious and political matters. Why? Because it doesn't make you a lot of friends. Everybody's very sensitive about their political and religious views. But I had to do this one. I'll tell you why I had to do this one because our VIP guest is none other than Frank Cavallaro tonight, who's running up here in Canada, namely the Greater Montreal, the Tanamont Royal, Hampstead, Côte Saint Luc riding for the Conservative Party. And I was very, even though I'm not crazy about politicians, and I'll tell you why in a few seconds, I had to do it for my mentor, Frank Cavallaro, my personal friend. And not because he asked me, as a matter of fact, he was kind of hesitant because knowing my style of hosting where I tell it as it is, good or bad, he was kind of, Don, why are you doing this? Where do you want to go with this? And the reason is that people, we the people, have a right to know, especially from a guy like Frank Cavallaro, who's a very truthful, also tells it as it is, very ethical person. And I said, I got to do this. So here I am. I'm doing it, living proof. I just want to put a few disclaimers. Number one, all the questions that are here forth prepared are prepared by myself. None of these are Frank Cavallaro's pre-questioning. Frank did not have his hand in any of this production. It's all I, me, myself, and I. For you, the people. Yes, for you, the people. Number two, I've said it before and I'm being redundant. Forgive, I don't like politicians. Why? Because as far as I'm concerned, most politicians lie, cheat, and steal our monies in order to fill their pockets. Now, call me very rugged, old fashioned. That's fine. But we're not here to talk about me. And they always seem to run away and get away with murder, just like some of the questions I'm going to be asking Frank in case he might have some truth to share with us. Canadians, everywhere in the world for that matter, but Canadians are irated with all this, let me call it as it is, bullshit of people not telling us the truth, meaning governments, et cetera, and everything that's happening. By the way, I just want to take a few seconds to remind the world that we shall never forget 9/11. I mean, 20 years ago, here we are on September 12th, one day, 20 years later, and what happened with this nightmarish, hellish atrocity. It's beyond me, and I've cursed the people that are responsible, which in my book is and this is not a conspiracy. It's not only the terrorists. There were other groups, political groups, that had their hand in this battalion from hell. All right. With no further delays, please allow me to introduce to you our VIP guest, all the way from Montreal, Mr. Frank Cavallaro. And here he is. Hello, Frank. How you doing?
Hey, Don Zeno. How's it going?
You probably heard my intro. You must have been churning within your thoughts, saying this guy has got to be nuts just to be saying some of these things. But you know me. One thing about aging, Frank, I tell it as it is. I fear nothing anymore.
Good.
You got to tell people. You lose a lot of friends, and I think I've made a lot of not enemies, but people that don't like me as much as they did years ago. But hey, what? The few years I got left, I got to tell it as it is. And if I tell you, if you and I are still together, guess what? It's because I like you. And I like you because you're very truthful. You're a hard worker. You're for the people. I mean, if every politician were like you, there wouldn't be any problems. I would retrieve some of those harsh statements that I made about politicians. But you know where I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, Frank, my first question, you need no introduction. People know your background. But just in case you have some newcomers, Frank Cavallaro is a consummate professional in the media world, which has a whole new meaning nowadays as to when Frank started 40 years ago. But Frank, why are you running for the Conservative Party of Canada in your writing?
Well, Don, as you probably know, and a lot of people know, I've been a Liberal supporter all my life. My family, myself, we've always voted Liberal up until 2019, just before the pandemic started. You know, I was just I was not happy with Justin Trudeau and the way the Liberals handled the vaccine rollout, the lockdown, the border closures. I just wasn't happy. And then the scandals, one scandal after another, the We Foundation, SNC Lavalin, the Governor General that was forced to quit a few months ago, the two ministers that were forced to resign. So, you know, plus, you know what? Justin and the Liberals have been in power for 6 years. It's going to be 6 years in October. I thought it was time for a change, and I was approached, and I said, "Sure, why not?" You know what? And I like Aaron O'Toole. I really like him. I met him about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Nice guy, family man in the military, bilingual, born in Montreal. Really nice guy. You know, worked his way up. He works hard, and that's what I like. I mean, I'm just not crazy about Justin Trudeau and the party, the way the direction the party's gone into. I mean, when I voted Liberal, it was the Jean Chrétien Liberals, the Pierre Elliott Trudeau Liberals, I remember. But now the Liberal Party is Justin Trudeau's Liberals, and I just don't like it. That's why I decided to make the jump and become a Conservative candidate.
Frank, you mentioned something in your intro about vaccines. How do you feel about vaccines?
Well, look, when I got vaccinated, before I did, I called my doctor. My doctor's been taking care of me for years. I called him up. I said, "Doc, should I get the vaccine? You know my health, my health history and everything." He said, "Yes, Frank, get the vaccine." And I did. So I listen to doctors. I listen to scientists. I know there's a lot of conspiracy out there, but I listened to my doctor. I'm glad I did. I'm fully vaccinated. I haven't had first vaccine and my arm was sore. No side effects. Second vaccine, I was sick for about 18 hours. I had a bit of fever, chills, and then I was fine. And I've never had an issue. Now, no, nobody's forcing anybody to get vaccinated. If you don't want to get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated.
Now, wait, I'm confused. Nobody's forcing. It seems to me that we are being forced. And by the way, same as you, I got vaccinated. I got my double shots because I was tired of my boys, giving me hell that, don't be stupid, don't be this, don't be that. But you know how I felt about the vaccine because we had this conversation at the very beginning, I believe, April, May of last year.
Yeah.
So what's this? Is there? I heard also rumors. I'm using conjecture all the way that the O'Toole people are not vaccinated. Most of them are not vaccinated. Is that true?
That's not true. I would say a handful of candidates are not vaccinated.
So is that dirty media once again? Mainstream dirty media that sides with certain people. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. I mean, listen.
You are confirming. So, I mean, mainstream media.
There's possibly a handful of people that have not been vaccinated. Now, I can't even confirm that. There's probably less than a handful. So, but all it takes is one that's not vaccinated, and Justin will go out and say to O'Toole and Canada, "Look, his people are not even vaccinated." But nobody's forcing anybody to be vaccinated. If you don't want to be vaccinated, I know people that haven't been vaccinated for whatever reason. They don't believe in it. They're scared of it. So
I do too.
Yeah. So we're up to 77% fully vaccinated. That means there's still 23% of our population, which is 35 million. That means about 7 million people that are not vaccinated. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's fine. If your job says, you know what, you can come to work and you're not vaccinated, but you have to be tested 3 times a week, get tested 3 times a week. If you want to travel and some countries need you to be fully vaccinated, you won't be able to travel. If you can live with that, you don't have to get vaccinated. Nobody's forcing anybody to get vaccinated.
Frank, I know that you've worked for mainstream media for 40 years of your life. Are there any comments on mainstream media and how they handle politics or other major issues? The
Well,
truth now, the truth.
it's normal that, since Justin and the Liberals have been in power for almost 6 years, it's normal that they get a lot of exposure. I mean, he's our prime minister, his MPs, his ministers. It's normal that they get a lot of exposure. The other MPs, like Aaron O'Toole, he's the opposition leader, he gets some exposure. But some people come up to me and say, look, we never see O'Toole on TV. Well, now you do because there's an election campaign. But before the election, he was on once in a while because that's the way it is. He's the opposition leader. He would be on when it was time to be on. But most of the time, I mean, Trudeau came out of his home every morning at 11 and gave us a pandemic update. So, and you know what, having been in the media, having worked in private and public television and private radio, I just find, that the media does lean a little bit towards the Liberals. I mean, which is normal. They've been the party that's been in power for the last 6 years. Now, if the Conservatives win, let's see how they handle that. If they give, the Conservatives the same amount of exposure that they gave the Liberals. But no, you know what? They've been in power, and that's the way it is. You're going to get a lot more Justin and his MPs and everything else. The news. So people are saying, "Hey, we never hear from you guys." Well, how can you hear from us? We're not even in power. So that's the way it is.
Frank, why should people trust you, Frank?
Well, why should they not trust me? I'm a media guy. I say it like it is. I'm telling you that I was a Liberal supporter all my life, and I've changed. The reason I've changed is I didn't like the way they handled the pandemic, scandals. They spent too much money compared to other countries. I mean, we've spent a lot of money on this pandemic. What went wrong? We deserve answers. People talk to me about the same things, pandemic response. They can't get jobs. Restaurants can't find employees. It's always the same thing. And, I agree with that, and that's the way I am. And I'll speak my mind when it comes to language issues, when it comes to pandemic response. I wasn't happy. I mean, I was a year and a half ago when Trudeau was buying all these vaccines from around the world. I thought, man, we're going to have all these vaccines here in a matter of months. Well, now we've caught up. Yes, we're doing well, but that's 18, 19 months later, and we don't have vaccines here. Why are we not producing here? We should have had a plant producing vaccines here instead of buying. We would have been ahead of the game, and we would have been out of the lockdown a lot earlier. Now, people are going to say, you know what? The Conservatives years ago had a chance to build a plant and they didn't. I agree. They made a mistake too. And that's why I'm honest. They made a mistake. Justin made a mistake. Let's learn from the mistakes. Let's make sure this never happens again.
Frank Cavallaro, would you hesitate turning whistleblower if ever it came to your knowledge that any political power were involved in some wrongdoing? Would you hesitate in becoming a whistleblower by running to the media, obviously, if you were in office?
Well, if I was in office, I'd look into it myself before going to the media. I mean, if I thought something was wrong, if I'm an MP or if I'm a minister, I definitely would look into it, and I'd try to get down to it, and then I would tell the media what happened. I mean, listen, before
that, would you not hesitate and, for example, and call up the RCMP for added, what's the word? Not protection, but added reinforcement to your findings? In other words, if you saw something that went totally against your personal belief,
as a politician,
hang on a second, whereby some party, whether it be yours or the opposite parties, were doing something wrong, were caught with their hands in the till, would you, before going to the media, would you seek out RCMP intervention?
I don't know about RCMP, but I would definitely look into the right authority to see what.
Who's the right authority in your book?
Well, depends what I've seen and what's wrong.
Okay. This is hypothetical, Frank, and I'm not projecting. Picture something totally wrong where your good, great Catholic upbringing says, boy, there's something wrong here. There's wrongdoing, severe wrongdoing, which could jeopardize, God forbid, people's lives, people's monies, because God knows how many billions of dollars flew out the window in the last 6 years. You said it yourself in so many few words. Would you not hesitate calling up the RCMP for them to help you investigate and protect you at the same time as a whistleblower?
Well, of course.
Yes or no?
Yes, I would. I would, like offshore accounts. I mean, offshore accounts, people hiding, not to pay taxes. I would look into it, definitely. Now, does it involve calling the RCMP? Maybe there's another step before that. I think RCMP, or they would investigate. There's the intelligence agency that Canada has. The name is CSIS. Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. Yeah, definitely. I mean, listen, if you're in this, you got to do it the right way. If you're going to start lying and cheating, then you know what? You got to pay the price. I mean, this is the way I am, especially if you're involved in politics and you're running the government.
Frank Cavallaro, should we, the people, believe, let's call them rumors, all right, about our own prime minister having done some wrongdoing in terms of using our hundreds of millions of dollars to favor his favorite charities, friends, what have you, blah, blah, blah. How do you feel about that? I really don't know how to formulate this question, but it's all about transparency. Do you believe that it would have been okay if he were transparent and tell us in advance, hey guys, I'm going to be giving monies to SNC Lavalin, Bombardier, just to name you some of them. Again, this is coming from me, folks. This is coming from me, all right, based on conjecture and rumors. So do you think that any politician that could face a conflict of interest should be transparent and tell the medias in advance what they're doing, why they're doing it?
Well, if you're transparent, there won't be a conflict of interest. You have to say it first, and then if you think that it's a conflict of interest, you won't do it. But listen,
right, you know what I meant. Yes.
Yeah, but listen, SNC Lavalin was in the news. We all know that. We Foundation was in the news. We all know that. The two ministers that resigned, we know what happened. I mean, it's coming out. Listen, conflict of interest, if you're not sure, you put it out there and you'll be told if it's a conflict of interest or not. If it is, just don't do it. If you still do it, the people will decide at the polls. They will decide at the polls if you weren't transparent, if you cheated, if you handed out money and you weren't supposed to, if your family benefited from you, that's a conflict of interest. So the voters, the Canadians at the end will make a decision and they'll decide. And if they want to vote for that person again, knowing that there was conflict of interest and no transparency, then be it. I mean, they'll vote for whoever they want to vote.
That's so eloquently said, Frank. Do you think that we're at crossroads in the history of politics up here in Canada, where we, the people, are just fed up with politicians being liars, cheaters, and what have you? Do you honestly believe that we're crossing a new path to a new horizon where politicians really have to be transparent, exactly what you're saying? Do you believe that? Do you honestly believe that?
I believe they should be, they must be, but you know what, Don? I don't think it's like it's going to happen at 100%. You're always going to have some people out there that are going to bend the rules for their own self gain. I hope it comes down to transparency, but I can't answer that question. I can answer for myself that I'm going to say it the way it is, and if I know that I shouldn't be doing something, I won't do it. But I can't answer for other politicians.
Frank Cavallaro, I'm just a grumpy old man, I guess, because sometimes I hear things, because I've got connections everywhere, and I hear things about certain politicians. We won't mention names, but it's obvious that in public pretend to be hunky-dory, happily married, and then you hear rumors of sexual harassments, liking certain sexual preferences, and their wives are just there once in a while to hold hands, but in real life they're not happily married, which is not the end of the world. I mean, how many couples that are happily married forever and ever? I mean, it's just la la land. But Frank, here's where I'm going with this. Do you believe that we, the people, have a right into a politician's personal life, or that should not be?
It's up to the politician. If he or she wants to tell you his personal life, her personal life, it's up to her or him. I mean, who cares if they're married, separated, divorced, sexual orientation? It's really up to the politician. If he or she feels that the public should know, then maybe he'll come out and say it. If he wants to hide it, he or she can hide it. It's really up to the politician. There's nobody, I think people out there are really not that interested. I mean, it could raise a few eyebrows, but I really think it comes down to how transparent the person is. If he or she does a good job as an MP, as a minister, that's what people want to know. How could these people in the government really serve their constituents?
Frank, picture this, all right? Based on what I've been seeing and hearing, you seem to be doing very well in terms of the writing popularity. They seem to like you based on my own findings. Number one, the people, I know this coming from your mouth, that the people that you've met door to door, and God knows you've done more doors than door manufacturing companies, if I may joke about it. But
or Domino's Pizza.
Or Domino's Pizza, yes. So where I'm going with this is I'm getting the impression that not too many people in your writing like Mr. Trudeau for whatever reasons. How do you view that without being too modest or too bragging? How do you view those findings?
Well, Don, you know what? I've been doing door to door for a month. It's tiring. It's interesting. It's a lot of fun. Meet a lot of interesting people. And I have to tell you, this is the first time I've done door to door. First time I ever run for a political party. I am, every day when I do door to door with my team, we're usually 4 or 5 people. We do both sides of the streets. We ring doorbells, talk. Before we even introduce ourselves to the people that we knock on their door, 8 out of 10 doors, and I'm not exaggerating, 8 out of 10 doors, one will get a no, we're not interested in voting for you. One will get, we still haven't made up our mind. And the other 8, it's unbelievable. We hear, we want Trudeau out. We don't like him. Can't stand looking at him anymore. We don't like the way he talks. That's 8. Now, I've done what, 4,000 or 5,000 doors in in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all over
That's more than a door manufacturing company. I'm proud of you.
all over Mount Royal, Hampstead, Côte St. Luc, parts of Côte des Neiges and Cavendish. And we get that all the time. I think one day, we were down to 70%, but most of the time it's about 80% of the doors we do just don't want Justin Trudeau to be prime minister anymore. Some of them will say, you know what, I like the local MP who's there, Mr. Housefather, but I can't vote for him because I don't like Justin. And some will say, you know what, I hate Justin, but I'm still going to vote for Anthony, and that's fine. But 80%, 8 out of 10 don't want to see Trudeau as prime minister anymore. And you know what? For a month ago, they didn't really warm up to Erin O'Toole. But the last couple of weeks, especially after the debates, people are telling me, you know what? He's not that bad. I think he'll make a good prime minister. His French is really good. We didn't think he could speak French that well. He did a good job. In English, he did a fabulous job. And in French, he held his own. So this is what I'm hearing. And like I said, I mentioned that I met O'Toole a few weeks ago. Super guy, nice guy. Guy you want to sit down, have coffee with, discuss, have a few laughs. Really nice guy, honest, family man, works hard. So this is what I'm hearing as I do door to door. Now, will it translate into a vote for me in a liberal stronghold for over 80 years, 81 years? I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But I firmly believe that O'Toole will be our next prime minister. I'm convinced that he will be minority government or majority. I think it'll be minority for sure. With a bit of luck, he might get majority because people are really fed up. And I really think a lot of people are not saying what they really want to say, that they don't like the Liberal government. They don't like the way the pandemic's been handled, the scandals, the money, the way it's been spent. I think when it's time to go to the ballot box, they're going to see Trudeau's name there again, or the party. And I think they're not going to vote for him. So I think O'Toole will get a minority, minimal. And with a bit of luck, he might get a majority.
Frank, you're not too far out from the truth. You mentioned something that I've always believed. If you and I, let's use the word, steal $10 from Revenue Canada or Quebec, they're liable to throw us in jail for 10 years. Okay? I'm being facetious, of course. But if a politician, high-ranking politician, like a prime minister or a president, they steal hundreds of millions of dollars of our monies, and the worst that could ever happen, which I haven't seen it yet, years later, they get a slap on the wrist. Now, I go back to my first statement. What kind of whistleblower would you be if you saw something dirty? Would you be a whistleblower? So in other words, Frank, I know I can trust you because I've known you for 21 years, but people that barely know you or just know you as the media guy, why would they trust you if you came into power tomorrow morning? Would you represent their best interest? Would you turn your back on them if somebody asked you for not a political favor, but to look into something that is of community interest? Would you take it seriously? Would you go out of your way to represent that one person or that one group?
Well, if you get elected, you got to represent your constituents. So whatever they ask you, you should listen. I mean, you got to, like right now when we knock on the doors, people ask us stuff. The other day we had a lady ask me, what could you do about the airplanes? And I said, the airplanes? I said, yeah, the airplanes. See, in Mount Royal, when the planes land, they land right over Mount Royal. Like they fly over Mount Royal and it gets loud. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a federal thing. It's not a provincial. It's not a municipal thing. I can't fix the roads because that's a municipal thing. And I looked up and I said, you're right. There's planes flying right over Mount Royal. It does get loud. And I said, that's something that if I win, I can bring that up to the Minister of Transport. And
by the way, in Quebec, namely Montreal, if you want to fix the roads, you got to speak to the guy in back of me with the cat.
Yeah.
He's the one that controls all the roads.
So it was interesting conversation. She was upset that planes were flying over her nice home in Mount Royal, and it got loud a few times. So then I said, listen, this is a federal thing, and I would bring it up with the Minister of Transport and say, listen, can we change the route? I mean, it wasn't Mount Royal. They moved it there for whatever reason. So maybe move it towards the Met so they can fly over the Met where there's cars, not over home. So there's ways of doing it, but that's a prime example of listening to people, and it's a federal issue that I could possibly look at. But if you ask me to look at, you know what, the community center in town needs renovation, I can't really do much. That's more of a local thing. But in terms of federal, when it comes to, the money spent, helping the senior citizens, healthcare, yes, or planes flying over your community, we can look at stuff like that. Of course, you have to listen and you got to try to do something. Otherwise, why are you even running if you're not going to do anything? You have to listen to the people who put you there.
Absolutely. That would become a full-time job, and rightfully so. I think you'd be nicely paid, if I may throw in my 2 cents. Frank Cavallaro, let me ask you this, all right? Are you privy to some of your party's campaign promises? I want to go over some of them, most of them. And if you can't answer, just say, hey, Don, I can't answer for whatever reasons. I'm not going to be a stinker because I'm not a journalist. So I'm not going to be up someone's rear butt like an angry mosquito up and around the corner. Do you follow what I'm saying? So what are some of your campaign promises that you're very proud of? And let's take them one by one, please. Don't forget, folks, Election Day up here in Canada is September 20th. We got 1 week for you to make the right choice. First of all, look who's talking. Frank, I got to tell you, I haven't voted. Actually, I did. I voted after 22 years. When was it the last votes? I don't even remember. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. I hadn't voted for 22 years. Shame on me. But I was so, because truthfully, I don't trust and I don't like politicians, but I like and love people like you, human beings. Okay? Despite one's best intentions, when you end up in the lion's den, you got to follow the rules. Frank, I know you keep telling me, my wife keeps telling me, the kids keep telling me, Don, you and your distorted UFO beliefs and conspiracy theories. But you know what? There's a lot of truth that when you go into politics, you've got subterranean, very powerful groups. I won't mention names because that could get me in big trouble or even hurt. That control people like Trudeau, for example. They tell the puppeteer tells the puppets what to do, and you have no choice in the matter. That's the way it works, Frank. So just the mere fact of you nodding one way or the other tells me that you're a good listener. You don't have to agree with me, and I wouldn't want you to agree with me because I'm not in your shoes right now. And I admire what you're doing because politics is not for guys like me, definitely not. So I admire the courage that you've had. So answer the question, what are some of the campaign promises that you can share with us? Let's go over them one by one.
Well,
okay.
I haven't promised anything. The only thing I promise the people I meet is I want to represent them. I'll do the best. I'll be a communicator, a listener. I'll go to Ottawa. I'll talk to O'Toole and the ministers. If O'Toole wins the election, I think he will. And if I win, obviously, if I don't win, there's not much I can do. But if I win, all I can promise you is, conservatives have a platform. You go to conservatives.ca and you'll get everything there. Recovery plan, our climate change plan, our daycare plan, our gun plan, everything is there. I haven't promised anything. I read the platform. I liked it. And if O'Toole wins, conservatives win, that's the platform. I mean, he's come up with some great ideas.
Could you share some of those ideas with us, please?
Well, economic recovery, the first thing he wants to do if he wins, I know this seems like a small thing, but it's actually a big thing. He said that if he wins, I believe for a month, you can go to a restaurant with your family, up to $35 a person, and you don't have to pay Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at a restaurant, $35 on food, non-alcoholic beverages, and they will pay the restaurant. Now, why is he doing this? Restaurants are busier Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. He's doing it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 30 or 35 bucks. Don't quote me on the exact amount. So family of four, 120 bucks, you eat, you don't pay. The government will pay the restaurant to encourage people to go out and eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So the restaurants start making money again and start getting people back in the restaurants because
that's a big tax generator. By the way, Frank, I'm glad you're telling me this. It was unbeknownst to me. So you know what? I'm off my diet. When can I go?
Well, as soon as he gets elected and he tells you what month,
okay.
He has to get elected first. I mean, the other thing is, I think he said in the month of December, to encourage people to go out and buy locally, he'll get rid of the GST for the whole month of December.
Well, that's better than a kick in the ass because we know that GST is a very important revenue stream for any government.
So he
let
wants
alone
to
Canada.
kickstart. He wants to kickstart the economy. He's coming up with a couple of plans. There's the minor stuff. The restaurant's not that minor because if you think of all the restaurants in Canada, if people go out and eat Monday, Tuesday, and I bet you if he gets elected and this kicks in, which it will, the restaurants will have good business Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So what happens? You go to a restaurant, $35, you don't pay. You want to leave a tip, you leave a tip. The restaurant sends the bill to the government pays the restaurant. Restaurant's happy, he's busy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. People are spending money to go back to the restaurant. I think it's good, it's smart. There's a lot of thought going behind this. So that's one of the things.
Frank Cavallaro, Frank, question number 2, which is a spin-off of that. In your writing, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, you've got a lot of businesses, right?
Yep.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay. In order to encourage those businesses to, expand, hire, to make nice, to actually produce sales, are there any tax breaks for those businesses in treating them fairly, like, for example, a basic tax, which is not too sharp and not too shabby? Because let's face it, we all need to pay taxes. Otherwise, governments would not exist if we didn't pay taxes, and the world would be in shambles, and it would be an ugly place. I, for one, as an entrepreneur, I realize that we have to pay taxes. It's just that some taxes are way too exaggerated. Forgive my long-windedness. I just want to know, do you know anything about this tax reform or forum or platform that would make it interesting for business people to vote for you?
Well, again, in his plan, there is a recovery plan for businesses. I don't know the details, but I was reading a while ago that it's not really a CERB. CERB is just handing out money. This is like you go up to employers, you help them out financially, you give them money if they rehire people, to encourage employers to bring back employees, because now that seems to be a problem. Instead of handing out money to employees that are going to stay home that don't want to work, go up to employers. I don't know what the amounts are. Again, this would be in the budget. He would hand out some money to employers. In turn, listen, if you hire your 5-6 employees back, you'll be compensated. In other words, we'll pay some of the employees to come back till everybody's back to normal. So it's another way of encouraging businesses to rehire their employees. So if the employer says, listen, my dishwasher doesn't want to come back, well, he or she won't come back now because he or she's getting served. But if that dishwasher will get a salary that he or she was getting before and the bonus through the employer, that person is going to make more money, and that'll get the economy going and people working. And if you make more money, Don, you spend more money.
Agreed.
So, if you're making more money, you're going to go out and spend, which is what we have to start doing. The only people that have benefited in the last 18 months have been the big companies like Amazon and online shopping. The small businesses have suffered. And, this is what the Conservative Party wants to do, is help small and medium business get back on their feet.
Agreed. Totally agreed. What about the Go Green platform? In other words, discouraging consumers to purchase fossil fuels of any kind, let's say gasoline, for one. What does your party pretend or propose in doing to slowly turning people towards clean energies?
Well, they want to, first of all, study it, fade it out slowly. You can't do everything fast, because if you do that,
Agreed. I'm agreeing with you.
You're going to put a lot of people out of work. And what happens when they're out of work? They get depressed, mental health issues.
Oh, you don't have to go there. I'm agreeing with you. Any change, any major change needs to be done slowly. It's like getting someone off a drug of some type. It's like somebody dieting. You can go from 5,000 calories to 2,000 calories overnight, because your body goes into shock of some kind. For example, or smoking, whatever. But I'm agreeing with you. Yes.
Yeah, but climate change, there's a plan there. Emissions, I think what's happened with climate change is all the parties in the last 10 years have, set these goals to reduce emissions that are impossible to hit. I mean, they just, 60, 70, whatever, and it never happens. And as a matter of fact, since Justin and the Liberals have been in power, the emissions have not gone down. So, it's fine and dandy to hear, by the year 2030, we're going to reduce our emissions by this much, but is it actually going to happen? So I think it's got to be studied. You can't put people out of work. You got to look at oil, the pipelines. You don't want the pipelines. What's the other solution? You're going to truck all this oil, and trucking could cause problems. There's pollution.
Yeah.
So everything has to, you can't just say, look, we're going to cut every pipeline in the country and that's it, and put people out of work. You can't do that. You got to slowly do things the right way, analyze everything. And I think we're already, Canada is in the right direction. We've got electric cars. I mean, Quebec, I think, is one of the leading provinces in Canada when it comes to electric cars. So I think we're in the right direction. We still have a lot of work to do. For my son, for your kids, for the kids out there, because we definitely have to do something for climate change. Just look at the fires we've had this summer, the flash flooding, New York,
Agreed.
New York City. I mean, Italy, Greece, fires everywhere, and hurricanes. So we did something. Definitely has to be done. And I like the plan there. I mean, you don't just put emissions out and say that we're going to do it, and then it never gets done. You'd rather aim less and do it properly than aim high and make people believe, wow, by the year 2035, we won't have any more pollution, or our emissions are going to be down, when it won't happen. So you got to be realistic.
Frank, before we start inviting people into this very, very interesting podcast, thank you once again for accepting to be, let me call you a VIP guest like the old days. It's because I wanted people to hear a different type of politician, one that brings a promising future to the whole historical, historical impersonation and impression of politicians like I've have or had, and hopefully with time I too will change those views because of good, honest people like you, Frank. And I really mean that, and I hope that whoever's listening out there that wants to go into politics will actually follow your footsteps. One last major question, Frank. I'm part of the aging population at 65 plus. What does your party plan to do? Anything different for senior citizens? And I may have a plethora of questions, A to Z, based on what you're going to tell me now?
Well, I don't have the exact details on seniors, but again, in this 147-page recovery plan that the party put out, there's something in there for a pension. There's something in there for senior citizens. There's something in there for unemployment. There's something in there for everybody. I don't know the exact details. I mean, and like I said, I'm honest. When I talk to people and they ask me something like this, I'll say, listen, I don't have the details. If somebody says, am I going to get an extra $1,000 a month? I'm going to say, no, you're not, because I can't tell you you will. Read the plan that we have. You know, it's online at conservatives.ca. Read it. And if you
and what's the plan? Does that have any particular name?
It's called the recovery plan.
Okay. All right.
It's called the recovery plan. Go to conservatives.ca, and in there you're going to find climate change. You're going to find daycares. You're going to find gun control. You're going to find everything in there. And if there's something you disagree with, you bring it up. If there's something you're not sure about, you can ask the questions. You know, the thing about O'Toole and the Conservatives, we put out our platform early. It's been out there already for 3.5 weeks. The other parties barely have come up with a plan. The Liberals came up with a plan a few days ago. So the plan, our plan's been out there. It's detailed. Again, I think it's 100-something pages. Have I read every page? No, I haven't. I've read the climate change one. I've read on the recovery, the economic recovery. I can't get into detail. I'm not an accountant, so I can't tell you how much money. But pretty well, go to conservatives.ca, and when you have an hour and a half, go through the whole plan, and there might be things you like, there might be things you don't like, and there might be comments and questions.
Frank, before we've been chatting now for 45 minutes. I want to thank you once again. You know, unfortunately, I'm not CBC where I could have advertised this interview. But I know for a fact, having done this stuff for the longest time, 95% of viewers, listeners, listen to it in archive. 95%. You know that. So in other words, the minute we sign off, whether in a few minutes or in 10, 15 minutes, people will actually be able to go through our Facebook, YouTube, and start listening to the interview and, you know, draw their own conclusions. All of this to tell you that, you know, we had a lot to say because there's a lot to cover, and we're coming up on almost 47 minutes of talk time, which is great. No commercial interruptions, of course, like in the old days where we'd say this is being brought to you by so-and-so. None of that. It's straight talk. It's sincere talk. I've tried to ask all the best questions that were aforementioned to me by, you know, family and friends. Hey, you should ask him that. Hey, you should ask him that. And I did to the betterment of my memory bank. Are there any other things that I may have left out as a, you know, a good host of some kind?
You know, Don, the only thing I want to say is before you vote, think about it. Do vote. I know some people don't want to vote. I ran into a couple of homes that they said, no, we're not voting. We're fed up. That's fine, but you should vote.
But what happens, by the way, what happens if you don't vote? Like I just mentioned, I admitted, Your Honor, guilty as charged.
Nothing
for
happens.
22 years. I mean, does your vote go to someone or not?
No.
It's just
no.
It's just neutralized. Oh, okay.
It doesn't count. It just doesn't count. It's like a spoiled ballot. I mean, so I tell people, vote, think about it, look at the plans, look at who you're voting for. And I know Liberal voters like myself for the last 40 years. We thought the same. We always had the blinders on Liberal. I don't care what happens. We're going to vote Liberal. Well, I was like that up until 2-3 years ago.
Right.
And I think it's time to analyze, you know, like I said, out of 10 doors, we've had one or two out of the 10 that say, no, we're voting Liberal no matter what. We love the guy. That's fine. But those are the liberals that have been voting liberals all their lives. And, no matter what happens, they're always going to vote liberal, which is fine. But I'm
But
saying if you're not sure, take a few minutes. You watch the debates, you saw what happened. Go on conservative.ca, look at the recovery plan, and there's going to be questions there that you'll be able to answer. And then make a decision. If you still feel after all of that you should vote NDP or Bloc or Liberal or Conservative, then you can make the right decision. But don't go with the blinders on and say, I don't care what that guy does. I'm not voting for him. I'm not voting for him, for her. Do a bit of homework, like I did before choosing the Conservative Party. I did a bit of homework and I decided I was going to run.
Frank, there is a last statement and a question that I'd like to leave you with, and then we can wrap the show up. Okay, fair enough.
Mhm.
And we will have done it in under 1 hour, which is not bad because, there were a lot of details to cover. Frank, the ultimate government would be to have an independent ethics committee, like most organizations. Pharmaceuticals have ethics committee, hospitals have ethics committees, big corporations, believe it or not, some of them have ethics committee, but it has to be independent of the cause. Do you think that do we have that? I don't think so. Do you think that one day we will have a government ethics committee which is independent, with no conflict of interest?
I think we already have that. We already have some committees, ethics committees that look at stuff. And these are neutral committees that have nothing to do with the current government, and they do their work and then come up with the results. We already have that.
And how do you feel about that?
That's fantastic. I mean, that's
Yes.
exactly what you need. I mean, that's exactly what you need. You need committees that are not associated with either party go out and do their job and come up with the results and the findings, and then you look at that and you make a decision on the next move. I think we already have that. It's happened. It happens here in Quebec whenever there's a crime with the Montreal police, if I'm not mistaken. The Sûreté Québec comes in as neutral and they analyze, if there's an internal problem with the Montreal Police Department, the Sûreté Québec comes in. So it's happening already, and I think that's fantastic. Because if your ethics committee is from the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party, you're going to say, well, nothing's going to change.
Right, so exactly.
It does exist, and again, that's in the O'Toole and the Conservatives' plan, where they want to root out corruption. They want to have more committees. So everything is there. So again, I remind you, do go out and vote on September 20th.
Any closing statement for the fine people of TMR, Côte St. Luc, Hampstead, and any other county I may have omitted?
Listen, when I meet them, I tell them they've seen my face on the signs out there in Côte St. Luc, Hampstead, TMR, Snowden, Côte-des-Neiges. I was born in Côte-des-Neiges on Barclay, so I walked through there a couple of weeks ago. I met some old friends that I hadn't seen in years. They didn't believe that I was actually born there, but I told them I was born on Barclay. I showed them where I lived. I called my mom. I didn't remember the address. My mom told me the address. So I've had a good time. This has been a great experience for me. I'm learning a lot. I'm tired, but I'm learning a lot. I'm exhausted. I'm walking a lot, but it's fantastic. The weather's been great now. It's cooler. We had a couple of weeks back in 3-4 weeks ago, it was 35, 33 degrees. Humidity was 40. People know me from the weather. People say, hey, look, it's a weather guy, so that's good. People recognize me. We have talks about the weather. They ask me about my colleagues that I work with. It's good. It's been fun. And you get some jerks that, don't even give you, they open the door and they scream at you and they say, no, get out. We've had that too. So that's small percentage. But overall, it's been fun, interesting, and I'm really looking forward to September 20th, watching the election coverage to see what happens. And win or lose, it's been a great learning experience for me. I'd love to win, go to Ottawa. I went to University of Ottawa. I love Ottawa. If I lose, you know what? It's I'll take it with me. I've learned a lot, and we'll see what happens.
Frank, with your permission, even though this could get me in trouble, I have a closing statement for people in your writing. May
Okay.
I?
Sure.
And this has nothing to do with you. To all of my Jewish friends, as you can tell by my name, my ancestors were German Jews, and somebody went wrong somewhere down the line and they made me Italian. But anyways, here's what I tell you. Don't be schmucks. Don't be afraid of change. Frank Cavallaro will ethically represent your best interest. Give him a try. Give him a try. And chances are you'll reelect him 4 years from now. And you can tell your people that the messenger, Don Emilio Zeno, encouraged you to do so. And for the rest of you, thank you so kindly for your willingness to tune in and listen to the archived version of this live heart-to-heart chat with Mr. Frank Cavallaro, runner-up for the Conservative Party of Canada in TMR, Côte Saint-Luc, Hampstead. And Frank, as an old buddy of some kind, I can only wish you mazel tov, meaning all the best. May God give you the courage to keep on walking. That's well said. And I'd like to be invited to the big party if you do win, please.
Yeah, no problem, Don.
Yeah.
Believe me.
And I want my pizza paid by the new federal government. Remember that. Otherwise, I'm not coming.
No problem. I'll take you to a restaurant when O'Toole wins. We'll go on a Monday, so we won't even have to pay. The government will pay.
Frank, folks, good night. Have a nice week, and
don't forget to vote.
Don't forget to vote. See you guys on Election Day.